This is not a normal election, and this is not your father's Republican Party. It's now Donald Trump's party, and if he's elected, the consequences will be catastrophic. Trump acolytes have an entire plan called Project 2025 that outlines priorities for the first 180 days of a new Trump administration. And it's not hyperbole to say that Project 2025 would dismantle democracy as we know it. Critics are calling it the fascist playbook, and it should be one of the reasons, if not the reason, that you vote this November. What's at stake here is not just a Republican agenda versus a Democratic agenda, as in years past, but democracy itself. And you don't need to take anyone's word for it. You can read Project 2025 for yourself. The far right's blueprint spans 2 volumes, over 800 pages, and it details comprehensively the Republican strategy to remake the executive branch, concentrating power solely in the hands of the president. But as the far right is well aware, this project can't proceed without restructuring our government's foundations, without eliminating the legal obstacles and checks on the president, like, for example, the Department of Justice, which is why there's a whole chapter in Project 2025 about the DOJ. In his most recent piece, The Nation's Elie Mystal highlights how devastating Project 2025's assault on the Department of Justice could be. Elie writes, quote, "If Project 2025 is essentially a conservative heist plot, then the chapter on the DOJ is where the plotters detail how they intend to disable the security cameras and floodlights, allowing them to operate under the cover of darkness." Incapacitating the Department of Justice is exactly that, knocking out the security cameras. Trump's problem with the DOJ is not, as he claims, that it is a bloated bureaucracy, but rather that, as currently structured, it won't carry out MAGA's bidding. Mystal goes on to explain, quote, "Project 2025 proposes transforming the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ into a tool to fight for white supremacy instead of against it. It aims to do this by using the division to prosecute institutions and organizations that promote diversity as violating civil rights and equal protection of whites. And it's the logical conclusion of the conservative assault on affirmative action and DEI programs. Project 2025 is telling us exactly how the conservatives plan to take away the rights of women, people of color, and the LGBTQ community. I beg the American people to believe them." For more on this, I am joined by Elie Mystal himself, columnist and justice correspondent for The Nation. He's also a fellow with the Type Media Center and the author of the book, Allow Me to Retort, A Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution. Elie, we touched about this very briefly in the introduction, but can you please give us the TLDR for how Project 2025 plans to restructure and repurpose the Justice Department?
Yeah, so Project 2025 isn't a plan, it's a manifesto. It's a manifesto for how Trump's ruling junta intends to take over the legal structures of our nation. And it's really focused on the DOJ because, remember, folks, the DOJ hurt Trump, right? The DOJ stood up to Trump. And I say that having almost no respect for mustache-twirling racist Jeff Sessions. But when it came time to do the right thing, Jeff Sessions did the right thing and recused himself. I have almost no respect for Bill Grimace Barr. But when it came time to do the right thing after Trump lost the election, Bill Barr would not do Trump's bidding and would not file frivolous lawsuits against, the voting machines and Smartmatic and what have you, right? So Trump will not have forgotten that. And Project 2025 manifesto is his plan to remake the DOJ into an organization that will do its bidding, right? And the kind of key way to do that, I mean, look, the entire section is basically like a Seinfeld episode of Festivus. Like, it's just an airing of grievances that they have against, like,
can we talk about one of those grievances? Can we talk about one of those grievances? There are many,
sure,
you're right.
Sure.
But one that I found particularly troubling is that Project 2025 proposes to redirect the Department of Justice's focus from white-collar crimes to violent crimes. And I thought this was really interesting, given that many of the crimes of which Trump and, as you put it, his junta have been charged are often those white-collar crimes. So what do you make of this shift? Is this self-serving? What's the subtext here?
Right. No, they're trying to keep Trump's family out of jail with this stuff, because one of the other things that they do, not only are they saying that the DOJ should focus on violent crime, not tax fraud, bank fraud, charity fraud, all the stuff that Trump's and his people are accused of, right? And it also says that the DOJ needs to fire lawyers. They want the Department of Justice to fire the 300 or so lawyers that work for the FBI. It's why did they do that? Well, because the lawyers who work for the FBI are the ones that tell the FBI what they can and cannot do. And Project 2025 doesn't like that. They don't want to tell the FBI what they can't do. They want the FBI to take their orders directly from a political appointee that is beholden to their attorney general. And that's the other thing that's, I think, most scary about this idea, right? Because if you look at who the Republicans are talking about for attorney general, they're talking about people like Stephen Miller. They're talking about people like Mike Davis. They're talking about people who think that the wrong turn for this country happened when Lee surrendered at Appomattox, right? And they want to take us back into that antebellum way of thinking. And that's who, next time around, Trump is going to appoint as his AG, a loyalist racist, as opposed to just a general racist.
Well,
how does this affect Black America, right? we see the video that we just watched, and the idea is a total restructuring of the government in favor of the way they're putting it, in favor of Donald Trump and his constituents. And they want to make a totalitarian government that's ruled by Donald Trump. And from there, they will be able to reshape the government and reshape America and under their Republican and conservative ideas. And so that's the language that's being used to push Project 20 or to alert people about Project 2025. And of course, we're getting this from liberal lenses. And so we are here to educate ourselves on Project 2025, but also to take the fear out of Project 2025. Why should we be afraid of Project 2025? But we're also here to be real about the implications that could come from Project 2025, because Black America has refused to get our stuff together as a collective. So how could the implementation of Project 2025 negatively affect Black people? But how can it be implemented overall? So we're going to dig into all of that. Pat, I'm going to start with you, my brother. What are your thoughts on Project 2025, but also the way that Project 2025 is told to us through the media, like in the video that we just saw?
Well, the video we just saw, in my opinion, was more propaganda than anything else. That was pure foolishness. I mean, you got the guy. I'm not saying I disagree with name calling and acting silly, because we do it. Right?
Yeah.
But if you're in a political realm, in that sort of arena, that sort of landscape, trying to have it, like, it looks like y'all are trying to do y'all best impersonation of Fox News, and y'all hate Fox News.
Right.
So it, like the name calling and all of the other stuff, I don't want to see, like, if I was on MSNBC, CNN, any of those networks, I wouldn't be doing that. If we're going to talk about the issue, let's talk about the issue. Secondly, the presentation is just all ass backwards, and the black overweight Einstein just totally fucked up everything with his presentation of it. One, this is not a Trump plan.
Right.
This is a Heritage Foundation plan. The Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank. They're not thinking about Trump being their savior. They're trying to restructure the presidential office to be more in line with what they want it to be. They don't care who the next Republican president is. They just want a plan for the next one to come in. Now, if that's Trump, it does them no good if Trump isn't on board.
Right.
They need a president that's on board. Second, it's not a total restructuring of the government. It's a total restructuring of the presidency and the things that the president can do. It's not a total restructuring of the entirety of the government. So there's another thing, like there's a structural piece. Now, is the restructuring of presidential powers, the things that presidents do and the way they maneuver, will that impact the rest of the government? Yes, it will. But as long as those checks and balances and things are still in place, then you still have avenues for pushback. There is no totalitarian regime being put in place.
Right. That point there needs to be hammered home, that this is not a totalitarian plan. America has checks and balances in place. We have the means to fight back if any administration decides that they want to just totally take over the government, or any foundation or whoever the people are, like they want to totally take over the government. You're gonna have a fight on your hands.
Yeah, this is pure fear mongering. And it's not even fear mongering with a purpose. A purpose that's relevant and beneficial to black people. It does have a purpose. Come out and vote for Democrats. That's the purpose. And it's going to be very effective. But it doesn't serve any use, any utility for the black community. And then he goes off on this thing about focus. They want us to focus more on violent crime versus white collar crime. All right, I understand that you're trying to position that as saying they're trying to move the needle away from things that might get them caught up and focus on things that they don't really touch on, so they can continue to do the illegal things they do free of reproach. But when you position it as a one or the other, why the government is big enough, the Justice Department is big enough to focus on white collar crime and violent crime? Why are we even playing this game, this false duality, this idea that we got to pick one or the other? Me personally, as far as it affects my life, I would rather them focus on violent crime than white collar crime. I mean, right here in Charlotte, we got around people. So that's, you know what I'm saying? I would rather them worry about catching him than worry about them catching the dude that made $500 billion instead of $499 billion. Personally, as far as what impacts my life, do I want them to get that dude? Yes, because in a larger sense, he does have a lot of influence over my life. But I got to be alive for that to matter. So, but I don't understand why it's a either or discussion. He positions it as if firing lawyers is a bad thing. Some lawyers need to be fired. I would dare say most of the prosecutors in the country probably should be fired. Yes, I'm saying it. I'm just saying it how I feel. I don't have no stats to back it up, but I don't like prosecutors because they are largely involved with putting black people in jail. So I don't like them. And you can judge me on that however you want to judge me on it. But they probably need to be fired. Most lawyers, I don't give a f- they need to be fired. That include the public defenders that got a caseload so big they can't remember your name. They need to be fired too. Say no.
Hey.
Just tell. I don't know if that's even possible. I'm just talking out of my rectum right now. But say no. Like if I'm a public defender and you hand me 20 more cases and I got 60, I ain't even processed. No. That's when I give you the black woman finger. We are not doing that.
I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, like we are not doing it. No. So all in all, like that whole thing was malarkey. The way they're spinning it is negative scuttlebutt. I don't like any of it. It's fear mongering. It's foolishness. It's Bobby Boucher with Gatorade. It's not to be trusted.
Yeah. Last week when we were closing out our show, that's one of the things that I was talking about. The messages that are used to talk about Project 2025 from the Democrats, and it's all fear-based. I watched a video where it may have been Joy Reid, but I don't want to pin that on her directly because I don't really remember. But it was a black woman who was one of them news reporters, and she basically looked in the camera and said Trump is trying to declare himself as king. And we get why they're saying that. because they want people to vote Democrat. But it's a 900-page document. Read it. Read it for yourself. Get into it. It's going to take some time, but get into it. Familiarize yourself with it. Get breakdowns of it. Whatever you need to do, familiarize yourself with Project 2025. So, because the more you're educated about it, the less you would fear it. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, I just want to add this in for those that say, yeah, but it's Trump, boom, boom, boom. It's based on Trump. It's based. No, it's not.
It's not based on Trump.
It's based on an older conservative plan from the 1980s, which was put in place for Reagan's transition into office, which was also called the Mandate for Leadership.
Right.
So it's not based on Trump.
Nah.
It's based on conservatives doing what they do better than everybody else in the country. Plan ahead.
Well, it's based on Paul Dans, the director of Project 2025 in the Heritage Foundation, Spencer Cheriton, the associate director of Project 2025 in the Heritage Foundation, and Troop Hemingway, the associate director of Project 2025 in the Heritage Foundation, and a list of over 100 other contributors and people who help author this, as far as writing it, and people who poured in ideas. I'll put the link to the Heritage Foundation website so you can go look at the documents and look at all the things yourself. There's a list of authors. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a whole bunch of authors, about 30 authors. It's about 30 authors in this. And then the other contributors, this list it's about 100 other contributors. So this is a collective effort by conservatives to push their ideas. All of these people align on these specific ideas, these specific foundations that they want for the government. And they, like Pat said earlier, they need to align themselves with Trump because he's the Republican candidate. They need to align themselves with him so they can implement this. PC, what are your thoughts on 2025, Project 2025, and what are your thoughts on the video that we just watched, telling people about 2025 or scaring people about Project 2025?
Just on the optics, man. One of the things that I see that is, it's predictable, is that when they have these stories, they always feature somebody black, and the person that's black is the main agitator or the main one agitated in all of these different stories. And maybe I need to turn my mic a little bit. There you go. The person that's black is always the one that is the main agitator, or like I said, agitated person, whomever it is, in terms of that. And that does something. First of all, it just speaks to the theatrics of what has become media these days. And so, the scare tactics, man, grow some nuts. You know what I'm saying? If that's what it is, just grow some nuts. You'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? Every time you turn around is the Democrats or the Democrat stooges who happen to be these media networks that push this crap out every so often. They're always trying to use scare tactics for black people. They listened to Charles Manson when he talked about how to operate and function with black people. And so what it comes down to is that, first of all, Trump, I haven't ever heard Trump even really talk about 2025, the project himself. Two, the timing of this all and aligning it with Trump is very peculiar, because this plan was put in place. This plan has been well documented and available to the public since 2022. So why now? Maybe it has something to do with that disastrous debate that just took place a few weeks ago.
Well, they were pushing these fear tactics a bit before the debate, but you're right, it did help.
Oh, they knew it was coming. They had to, plant the seeds, but they didn't come on strong. It's like they're down the fourth quarter and they bring in Michael Jordan off the bench. All right, Mike, you got enough rest. Come You know what I'm saying? Come save us, you know. You know what I'm saying? Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. You know, this is the type of stuff that goes on. But let's be, and Pat was right. White supremacy is always trying to find a way to you know, in terms of like the conservative outlook, they're always trying to find a way to plan for the next phase of the new world order that they're trying to create. That's no secret. They've been doing it. They got books, A Brave New World, all these different things. They've been talking about this for hundreds of years, about in terms of maintaining power and superiority over the planet. They have been working on it. So they always are going to find a way to get ahead in terms of trying to set policy and things of that nature, or create a circumstance that's going to operate in their favor. So if they got a think tank out there that did this, my question is for all of y'all who are scared, where's your think tank? How come y'all haven't put together a think tank? How come y'all have not, you know, created situations where you can either counter this or build something strong enough to repel this?